student with me, so the bulk of the work I'm going to show today is his work. I was advising him. No, we're not moving here. All right, so I think we all know that soil moisture data is extremely useful for a variety of applications. But the problem is that a lot of users of soil moisture data require basically soil moisture everywhere all the time throughout the root zone. And of course, that's difficult to achieve because if you're using in situ soil moisture sensors, there's always spatial gaps between the sensor locations. And if you're working with satellite data, there's always a big gap between the spatial resolution of the satellite data, which can be 9 kilometers for something like SMAP, and the spatial resolutions that are needed for a lot of applications. So in recent years, a variety of authors have been looking at using machine learning algorithms as a tool to fuse data from multiple sources, fusing in situ data, remote sensing soil moisture data, and data from ancillary variables as well. So that was the focus of this project. So we set out to evaluate the accuracy or performance of 5 different machine learning algorithms for fusing satellite and in situ soil moisture data, as well as data from for ancillary variables. And we're specifically focusing on soil moisture throughout the root zone. So I'm going to show you results for 0 to 5 centimeters, 0 to 10, 0 to 20, 0 to 50, and 0 to 1 meter in depth. And the spatial extent of our study is across the coterminous US. The 5 machine learning algorithms we explored are listed here. We selected these because they're good at identifying nonlinear relationships between variables. They can handle also large data sets. And also, aside from the first one there, the artificial neural network, these machine learning algorithms can also indicate the importance of the different variables that are fed into them in making the predictions. You're probably familiar with artificial neural networks and random forest machine learning algorithms. The other 3 we looked at are also listed there. XGBoost is a lot like random forest. It's based on building decision trees, but unlike random forest where the decision trees are all independent of each other, each decision tree in the XGBoost aims to overcome the errors in the prior decision trees. CapBoost is similar to XGBoost, but it includes some innovations to reduce overfitting. And like GBM, just is intended to be a faster machine learning algorithm, so it has some approximations in its approach. So the inputs to the machine learning algorithms are pretty diverse. We started by using satellite soil moisture data from SMAP. We're using the level 4 products, which are the merging of the SMAP brightness temperature information with the model. We use the surface soil moisture 0 to 5 centimeters, as well as root zone and profile soil moisture data. We also feed in not just the current soil moisture as a potential predictor variable, but also antecedent soil moisture leading up to each date. So we use 1, 3, 7, and 14-day soil moisture values. We also include a land cover classification from the National Land Cover Data Set. We include vegetation indices from MODIS, NDVI, Enhanced Vegetation Index, LAI, and FPAR. And then we use a variety of soil characteristics that are obtained from the GNATSCO data set. And for each of those soil characteristics, except for depth to restrictive layer, we consider from 0 to each of the depths that we're trying to predict. We also fed in weather and climate data. So we're using precipitation from GPM, the eMERGE product. And again, we consider several durations of antecedent precipitation as potential predictor variables from 6 hours up to 14 days. We also use several products from EcoStress that are related to evapotranspiration. There's an estimated actual evapotranspiration, an ET stress index, and a PET. We use aridity index, just a static variable for the mean annual precip divided by mean annual PET. And then finally, we use various topographic attributes that are obtained from SRTM DEMs. So all of these data sets are resampled to get them to a consistent 70-meter resolution. So ultimately, the machine learning algorithms are predicting soil moisture at that spatial resolution. And because the EcoStress data are the most limited in terms of the times at which they're available, we only make predictions when we have EcoStress data. If we have missing data from the other data sets, we linearly interpolate in time to fill those in. And the period that we did the study for is between January 2019 and December 2022. So to train the machine learning algorithms, this is where the in situ data comes in. You see a list here of the networks that we use data from. After filtering out stations, we ended up with a total of 731 stations. And you see the spatial pattern of the stations we used on the map there. The machine learning algorithms were trained using a k-fold validation process. Ultimately, we used 70% of the data for training and validation. And then the remaining 30% of the data was never seen by the algorithms during their development. That's used for testing, and it's the results for that testing data that I'm going to show you today. When we did the partitioning up of the data, we did it by location. So what that means is a given location was either entirely in the training data set or entirely reserved for testing. And that just means the algorithm is intended to predict soil moisture at unobserved locations rather than, for example, unobserved times. So these are results. Each graph here shows you a different performance metric for the machine learning estimates of soil moisture. Along the x-axis there are the different algorithms. And on the left, I'm just showing you what the accuracy would be if SMAP was used as an estimate of the local soil moisture. So the first thing you can see here, if you just focused on the top two on the left there, that's the correlation between the estimates and the observed soil moisture and the root mean squared error. And the first thing you'll see is that the machine learning algorithms do outperform SMAP, which is expected because SMAP is a spatial average over 9 kilometers. They should do better than directly using SMAP. The other thing you'll notice is that the top performing algorithm is the XGBoost algorithm. It has generally the best performance overall, and the root mean squared errors there are about 0.04 on average. The top graph here just breaks up the root mean squared error for the different machine learning algorithms and SMAP. But here the groupings are showing the different in situ soil moisture networks that we're comparing it against. And the interesting thing we observe here is that the errors are much larger when we compare to the Cosmos network, that's cosmic ray data. And I don't think this is an indictment on the accuracy of that data. I think what it's saying is it's fundamentally a different type of data because the spatial footprint is much larger. One machine learning algorithm is not adequate for predicting both the local soil moisture and this larger spatial footprint data. The bottom graph here just examines the results of the algorithms for the different depths into the soil. And the thing I wanted to point out here is, generally speaking, the machine learning algorithms have lower errors when we consider deeper depths into the soil. And I think this is occurring simply because deeper soil moisture tends to be more stable through time, and I think it's easier to predict. These graphs just plot the performance of the best algorithm, the XGBoost. So the vertical axis is the estimated soil moisture from the algorithm, and I'm plotting it against the observations. But here it's broken up according to climatic regions. And the interesting thing we see here is that the weakest performance of the machine learning algorithms is for the semi-arid climate. In general, we see the lowest performance metrics here. And I think this is happening because in semi-arid climates, we also have the most varied topography and also probably the most diversity in vegetation types. So I think it's probably our most complex region. This graph just shows examples of what the results look like as a function of time at an example station. So this is a station near Las Cruces, New Mexico. The two graphs here are just showing you two different depths. The red dots are the results from the machine learning algorithm, the XGBoost method. And the blue line is just, I'm sorry, I think it's the green line is actually showing you the in situ soil moisture. So the point of this graph is just that if we look at the temporal variability that's being produced by the machine learning algorithm, it seems consistent with the temporal variability we see at this site. This is an example of a very different soil moisture temporal variation. This is from a humid site. And again, you can see that the temporal variability is roughly reproduced by the machine learning algorithm. So as I mentioned, part of the reason we chose these machine learning algorithms, aside from the ANN, is that we can identify the importance of each predictor variable in making the machine learning algorithm estimates of soil moisture. So this table, which is probably hard to see, just sorts our variables, our inputs to the machine learning algorithm according to their importance in the algorithms. Interestingly, the most important predictor variable is elevation, one of the topographic attributes. It's surprising to me because it's a static variable. It doesn't provide any temporal information at all, but it's clearly helpful in understanding the spatial variation of soil moisture between sites. Second up is the aridity index. It's the most important climate variable, again, a static variable. That helps us understand spatial variability between sites. The most important variable for the soil is the percent clay, which I think makes sense. We see generally a correlation, a positive correlation between clay content and soil moisture. So the most important dynamic variables in machine learning algorithms are a bit surprising. I would have expected that it would prefer to use the SMAP soil moisture on the date at which it's making the prediction. But actually, typically it prefers using antecedent soil moisture. So the 3-day average, and next up there is the 14-day average soil moisture leading up to the day of the prediction. This may be because there's errors in individual SMAP soil moisture estimates. And by taking averages over a few days, we reduce the effect of those errors. It's also interesting that the SMAP Rootzone and profile soil moisture products are not heavily used. And this is interesting to me because remember, we are predicting soil moisture at different depths, even down to 100 centimeters depth. So in making those predictions, even for deeper layers, the machine learning algorithms are still making those predictions primarily based on the surface soil moisture, which is interesting. And then finally here, it's also noteworthy that the National Land Cover Data Set, land cover classifications basically have very little role. So our most important vegetation index is actually the Enhanced Vegetation Index. So to wrap up, I think the key takeaways from the study, the first is that I think machine learning algorithms can be very effective at producing reliable estimates of root zone soil moisture at unobserved locations. But there are downsides, and I think the two main ones are first, these algorithms are very data intensive. So we used 41 predictor variables to make these estimates. And I think the other downside to keep in mind is the fact that These algorithms are really only reproducing what we observe in the in situ soil moisture data sets. So whatever limitations we have in those data sets are inherited by the machine learning algorithms. So if there's conditions we're not observing in those data sets, won't expect the machine learning algorithms to make accurate predictions for those conditions. So these results have been published. The citation is here if you'd like some more information. I'm also happy to take questions. Thank you. Yeah, so we use multiple criteria. The first is metadata that's provided with the soil moisture data. So if there were air flags, we use that criteria to filter the data. We also filtered the data based on unexpected or unreasonable values. So if we saw soil moisture of 0.8 or something like that, we would remove that data. And there was also filtering to avoid frozen soil conditions as well. So those were the main ones.
Okay. You said the sample in the data 17 meter resolution. So I'm very curious how do the sample cost resolution from the GPI from the SNAP and the 17 meter.
Right. So we didn't do any downscaling of any sophisticated nature. All we did is said, if you're within, for example, a SMAP 9-kilometer grid cell, all those 70-meter grid cells get the same value from that SMAP 9-kilometer value. So the 70 meters is not, I'm not saying that we actually achieve a realistic 70-meter resolution on all the inputs. It's just for consistency, we sample everything down to that same spatial resolution. But 70 meters?
The same values for the
I'm sorry, I'm not hearing the question.
I mean, for the 9 kilometer
Right. I may not be understanding your question, but we're just assigning the same value within the SMAP grid cell. Does that answer your question?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah, and I don't think we're capturing spatial variability of soil moisture down to 70 meters, in part because of issues like this, and also because the in situ sensors are so widely spaced. We're not capturing fine resolution variability, but that's the spatial resolution we use for the calculations. So in theory, it is producing a product at that spatial resolution.
All right, we're going to move on. We'll have time for questions later. Thank you, Jeff.